Wait, what? Oh. Yes. Yes. Yes! Oh, the movement looks so fluid. What the fuck is going on up there? There's airstreams and shit. Okay, that's cool. Sound design is awesome. Okay. Oh, fuck you. Fucking elevators. I want to do somersaults. Literal drill. Yeah, I took my tiny spikes. Ooh, those aren't tiny. There's rising lava? Fucking elevators! What is that, the Master Sword? Oh! This is so cool! This is so cool! What? Ooh! I know that, boss!
Play it day one with Game Pass.
How could this be? He was alive a second ago. There's a spider!
Spike?
Space! Wow. Well, that's a cool design, though. Frog-eat Frog World?
Frog-eat Frog World?
What the
You
fuck?
put a fucking crab on me.
You're lying, right?
I told you it's a mantis.
That's Cthulhu with a crack addiction.
You might find me down.
Wait, this does not look good. Chips!
Fucking hell.
Greed got the better of me.
Happiness. Oh, the chip.
Oh, we need to try something. You kick him into my one. Wait, you ready? Wait.
No.
You're fucking with me, right?
I don't have any shit left.
If you saw what happened to me. My ancestry is not a mountain. Fucking hell, you're going Christmas.
Okay.
Fucking hell!
Ah.
And then there's a tornado behind him, don't you? And he can combo you in midair. Are you fucking serious? Talk to me about it on the internet.
Hell.
I'm on 2 fucking tornadoes. Help. Someone
Help.
please. Help.
Oh no.
I got nothing left. Help. He's gonna kill me. What? What? Hanson. You're under arrest. What did I do? Why are you in my household?
Chris Hanson's here. I'm under arrest. I'm not with the police.
Okay.
However, this house is surrounded.
Fuck you, Chris. I'm just playing salt and sacrifice.
Technical guy.
We put up CCTV cameras on your house. Chris, what?
So here's this guy.
Yeah, okay. Get out of my other room, Chris. What were you planning to do with this child? What fucking does my little brother, you prick?
You know, I've heard that before.
I don't care. Just like get out before I fucking arrest your ass.
Problem with that is, I have the transcript of your entire conversation.
I didn't talk to anyone. You're buttfucker 26, right?
Yeah, it's my MySpace.
It's my fake account.
You know, right?
I'm not, Chris. Who are you? Why are you in Denmark? I flew here. Because I heard you were under arrest. No. Yeah, he's dead. Arrow's just too OP. Bum 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 bum. There was a trap over there. We've set up traps in your house. Chris, what the fuck?
To catch my prey.
Holy shit.
Fuck you, Chris, I'm going back to my room. You might not want to do that.
Wait, you also missed a chunk of health, right? Like a blue little spot you can't reach in?
Yeah.
Why does he fly like that? Holy
Wait, how do I
shit.
heal?
Oh! Oh, this is it. I just got thrown out the Run.
Shut up, R&B guy.
Wow. I'll have you know I live to die. So what is your next movie?
Interview.
Oh, that bachelling? Go on. Oh, don't touch me, baby. Oh, fuck this. This is only for true gentlemen. Oh, that was actually sick. Holy shit. What's that? Is there just a spike on the...
What? Oh,
that's what happened to me. Did a front flip on me. Stop! Oh, you don't know you're beautiful. Don't. Enemies. Oh, this guy.
it's enemies.
Okay. Oh, he's made of machinery. Wow.
What the
Robot.
Wait, let me get him.
Okay. That last part was not deserved.
Oh.
Papa Yaga, fuck off. Margaret Grandma. What? What?
Fuck, Rich, you're finally here.
What?
We have to start shooting a new best of the worst.
Oh, hold on. I just have to take my diabetes medicine first.
There's no time. Fuck your diabetes medicine. Come on!
I'm gonna die. He hasn't collected enough eyes yet to necessitate two.
You think you'd get there?
Try that again.
He hasn't collected enough eyes yet to necessitate two.
You think you'd get there? Necessitate.
Necessitate.
Do you want another beer, Rich?
Huh?
It's necessitate.
Necessitate.
You're missing a whole syllable.
He doesn't have enough eyes yet to necessitate. Fuck it! Fuck it! I'm done. I hate you people.
I know you do.
Why am I here?
I know you hate us, especially me.
I could be walking in a toll booth.
That would be preferable.
Could you get that job?
Oh no, I didn't mean that as an insult.
Oh, damn! Oh. Goodbye.
Well, I guess Rich was defeatable.
Oh.
This is the first appearance of Boba Fett.
Yes.
Which was a cartoon character.
Well, we've discussed the overall story.
He was also in a cartoon.
What?
He's a cartoon character. He was also in the cartoon and the thing.
What? What?
Who is that? Oh, there you go. All right.
Well, if he jumped off a higher building, he would have left a lot of oh God.
Don't even do it.
That
one's not worth it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
If he jumped off a taller building, he would have left a lot of
The moment's passed, Rich. Listen, no, I'm sorry. I didn't know what you were doing again. Ready? Try it one more time.
You fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself.
No, I won't say anything. I promise.
What am I, Charlie Brown trying to kick a football here?
Try another take of it.
I'm not gonna fly that kite.
You guys be quiet. Try another take of it. I'll even drink while you're doing it.
You want me to set it up? I'll set it up. So leave an exclamation point, not a question mark.
Well, if he jumped off of a taller building, then he definitely would have left some
On to our
exclamation.
next film, Deathstalker. And then our other character is Cynthia Rothrock. And she is a street fighter who is a waitress who earns money by It's almost like touch football, equivalent of what Stingray does.
If you
Once you
fall
push some guy down on the ground, you win.
It's the tamest street fight ever.
Nobody seems to bleed or really be injured that badly.
So the bloody duels to the death take place in some kind of facility boxing ring with boxing gloves,
Yeah.
and then the tame street fights take place in a dirty alley.
It's like the touch football version of street fighting.
That's what you just said.
That's what Mike just
He
said.
just said that. Oh, God damn it.
2 seconds ago. So that was it was a really good show. I mean, thanks everyone for watching Best of the Worst. And we just can't do it anymore. We're done.
Rich,
Is
are
Rich
you?
Evans replacing Mike Stoklasa? Oh my God! Rich Evans has replaced Mike Stoklasa.
The real question is Mike Stoklasa replacing your diabetes medicine? So there is a lot of replacing going on.
Everything's been replaced.
I wish they'd replace you. Now, so Grandpa driving the car hits the alien with his car.
Yeah.
An alien that we promised on the back of the box was a threat to all of mankind.
Yes. Unless you're driving a truck, and then you can just fuck
He
that
gets
thing up.
incapacitated by
It didn't die. It was unconscious for a bit, but
but a pickup truck knocked it down.
Unconscious.
Yeah, a pickup truck.
Unconscious.
Not.
What
the fuck is wrong with
I'm
you?
trying to say a word right.
I think you said it right, didn't you?
You said it right the first time.
I said is the first time. Unconscious. It's unconscious.
That's the same thing.
What?
Us
What?
is. Us is at the end.
What?
Unconscious.
What?
Unconscious.
See, none of us would have noticed that you said it wrong, but now you've drawn so much attention to it.
And you know, don't worry, Rich. I'll edit all this out.
Yeah.
You mean in repeatedly with jump cuts and text on the bottom?
Picture of your driver's license. And
when I'm like I'm in the middle of saying is, and you're just gonna freeze frame on my face awkwardly and zoom in.
yeah. But a pickup truck knocked it down. Yeah, probably all that plus more.
Unconscious.
Plus a lot
You're
more.
gonna be like a caption overhead. Rich Evans is a dumbass. Little arrow pointing at me.
Well, not a little
unconscious.
So many arrows.
Unconscious.
It's okay, buddy.
You're like a court jester. Right? Only an embarrassing court jester.
So the goblins stop the raper from raping the lady, and they start raping the lady, only to...
What is this, Rich Evans' autobiography?
What? Which one is Rich Evans?
Are they like hosing him down with like the fire extinguisher too, or?
Yes, they are. They use a fire extinguisher, but do you want to say that again?
You know what?
saying it.
It's fine.
Don't worry.
It's fine. I know what's gonna happen. The fire extinguisher.
Why would you assume that I would do it again?
He's got a lot of Asian names in this movie despite being not Asian.
That's right. Yeah.
So maybe that's another Hollywood whitewashing.
Oh my God, yeah. Might as well pull his eyelids back with Scotch tape, like Rich wanted to do for his Halloween costume.
What the fuck, Mike? What the fuck?
I said I wouldn't tell anyone, but I did.
Not like joke. Not like I'm gonna put a little fart bag on your chair and you sit down. It's gonna
Those
make
are
a fart
called
noise.
whoopee cushions,
Whoopee
not
cushions.
like fart bags.
This is
Are fart bags the off-brand version of a whoopee cushion?
Rich couldn't afford a whoopee cushion.
I had to get the off-brand.
You had to get a
Super
fart
value fart bag.
Rich has to go to the 50-cent store. He couldn't get the whoopee cushion from the dollar store.
Whoopee cushion? Well, what kind of high city, highfalutin cushion is that? I get a family value fart bag and I enjoy it.
Rich shops at the same store.
Oh no! Oh no!
Rich, you got revenge on that tape.
Go get the tape.
That's fine.
We need it for visual aid.
Fine.
Fart back.
Fart back.
So the videotape
It talks about ways to ruin people's lives.
and
I'm still thinking about fart bags. I'm sorry.
hashtag fart bag. Now, Rich, I know you know nothing about how you can make real friends, so I won't ask you to explain that.
Have fun with crippling debt.
And Rich put a bunch of on your.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Is there anything else to say? Rich? A couple of weeks ago, you invited me over and you said, you get comfortable, lay down on my bed, and I'm gonna start talking. And you started talking about the ocean waves, and then you went like this.
You and Rich are good friends, so you trusted me.
Yeah. And the next thing I woke up in a compromising situation, that's all I'll say.
Would you like to hear the story about how I escaped Satan's embrace and returned to my mortal body?
No. Not really.
No.
No?
No.
No?
No!
It's exciting.
You should have fucking stayed in hell, you piece of shit.
What is Garfield? So, I want to be honest here, in that unlike the other fandoms I've covered for this channel, I've never really been that into Garfield. That's not to say I dislike Garfield, it's just no, I'm not doing this! I do not need to humiliate myself for your amusement! A daily newspaper comic strip designed to be as simple and consumable as possible, but because of this, becomes unintentionally malleable and recreatable, spreading edits of it online, one of which unknowingly touches off a bizarre meta-narrative of a man being overtaken by his own creation. That creation, in time becoming an entity unto itself, one that has laid just outside the perception of man for 40 years, and will remain there for infinitely more, transcending humanity itself. This is the bizarre modern reality of Garfield, and now that we understand it, we may enter the world of I'm Sorry, John. On October 22nd, 2013, a comic was uploaded to the internet that showed John Arbuckle awaking late one night, but something is wrong. Something is very wrong. His room is bathed in an eerie orange glow, a strange material covering his walls, his furniture, and his entire home. He goes downstairs to try and discover the source of this problem, and upon entering the kitchen, he sees Garfield, his cat's strange swollen head bizarrely embedded in the wall, his skin spreading outward, covering every surface of his home.
I was so hungry.
As John realizes with horror, his entire home with him in it have been ingested by Garfield.
I'm sorry, John.
This was the beginning, and in the years to follow, more and more strange and frightening depictions of Garfield would begin to appear on the internet. Comics that looked normal at first, only to take disturbing turns, with Garfield often portrayed as something alien and unknowable, one of the most popular of which was 2017's Gramfell, a darkly humorous webcomic whose early pages were focused on John's depression, met by an uncaring, nihilistic Gramfell. But as the comic continued, Gramfell began to reveal to John not only the inherent unhappiness of life, but the futility of his existence as a character trapped in a webcomic, breaking John down to his core components and trapping him in strange and surreal realities over and over, at one point even transforming the very webcomic of Gramfell itself into a different series called Jan and Gram, in which John gets to live out the cute and peaceful life he's always wanted, before John is ripped from his serene dream and in the final page is forced to acknowledge that he is alone, and he always will be. What I find so fascinating about Garfield is it's that same dynamic of John and Garfield, just brought to a cosmically nihilistic extreme. This was the core concept of what would inform everything that was to come, but notably Garfield never felt truly frightening or disturbing because of the simple pastel cuteness of its aesthetic. And if the horror of Garfield on the internet was going to truly solidify, it needed an aesthetic, and in the following year, it would get it. In 2018, an image would be uploaded to Instagram from horror artist Will Burke, one that depicted a horrifyingly bloated Garfield clutching a tiny, frightened John with the text, "John, I require lasagna." Something about this image resonated with people, and it became wildly popular online, becoming the first in a series of 5 illustrations, each one depicting Garfield as a grotesque, swollen monstrosity, his form swimming between heaving mounds of flesh and sharp insect-like appendages as he hunted John through his home. And while the sheer horror of seeing Garfield twisted into such nightmarish forms were a huge part of the power of these images, critically, they also captured the kind of hopelessness of the character of John Arbuckle, but channeled it into pure horror. One illustration showing John terrified and clutching a shotgun as a grotesque centipede-like Garfield emerges through the door behind him, with text that reads, "Bullets don't work, John." The final image of this series depicting a gargantuan Garfield now towering over a helpless, terrified John as he whispers, "The world is going to end, John." These images would rampage across the internet, being posted, reposted, and upvoted tens of thousands of times, and would become the blueprint for everything Garfield would become online. As different artists began to create their own interpretations of Burke's work, such as animator Lumpy Touch, who took Burke's illustrations and reimagined them through stunning and horrifying pixel art animations, not only giving these still images a new horrifying dimension through movements, but also reframing them as a 2D survival horror video game. Lumpy Touch taking this concept even further later on, with both a first-person exploration recreation of the original I'm Sorry John comic, as well as creating a tutorial for his own fake Garfield survival horror game in which the player is hunted by one of 13 Gorefields, all based on the different zodiac signs. And what I really love about this is you can see that kind of existential horror introduced by Garfield, as well as the more grotesque body horror introduced by Burke, now being spliced with other mediums and genres of horror, and you could see this continue to evolve in other illustrations like those of artist Omega Black, who took the idea of Garfield horror and introduced a cosmic eldritch feel, like this image in which Garfield states, "I no longer require eyes, John." Omega Black's other illustrations only expanding on this Lovecraftian style of Garfield horror, with a grotesque centipede-like Garfield stating, "Heaven is a void of light, John," or John being held captive by cloaked Oddies before an impossibly massive multi-armed Garfield booms, "I'm eternal, John." Each new piece of Garfield fan art added to this idea of Garfield as a cosmic, horrifying being, sometimes referred to as Creepy Garfield or Gorefield. And this is what led to October 8th, 2018, and the creation of the subreddit r/I'm Sorry John. There's nearly a cult-like feel to I'm Sorry John. Its title plaque reading, "Garfield has abandoned his limited form and he is beautiful. Surrender yourself to him and be saved." This is a community of nearly 800,000 1,000 people dedicated to bringing to life this new version of Garfield the internet has created, as well as his infinite torment of John Arbuckle. And maybe, like I did, you're thinking, no, Garfield's not evil. He's not trying to hurt John. It's not like that mystery number 2 category of Garfield joke is in fact humor based off Garfield's torment of John. But that's right, at 18.8%, nearly 1 in 5 Garfield jokes center around Garfield causing John mental anguish. And it's not just that. Another variable I measured for was the amount of times Garfield showed empathy towards John or tried to comfort his suffering in any way. And across nearly 1,000 comics, that number was 0. So, in the same way Garfield minus Garfield reveals something real, if unintentional, about Garfield, the same is true in I'm Sorry, John. Garfield has always been about a person trapped with a cold, nihilistic being that torments him, and it's been that way for 40 years. And all that I'm Sorry, John does is bring that concept to a horrifying extreme. This is the reason I think so many pieces on I'm Sorry, John have this odd kind of power to them. Their horror is rooted in being trapped with something awful and inescapable. But what's really fascinating about the horror of I'm Sorry, John is how different artists have approached this idea in different ways. I like categorizing things, so I've identified what I think are 3 basic kinds of horror on I'm Sorry, John. The first being physical Garfield horror. These are pieces that twist Garfield into strange and frightening creatures, sometimes into amalgamations of unsettling body horror, but more often swelling Garfield to such nightmarish proportions that there is no chance of John ever defeating, escaping, or even surviving these grotesque beasts Garfield has become. And what's interesting here is how many of these pieces evoke or even directly reference the FromSoft games Dark Souls and Bloodborne, which themselves create a lot of their horror and emotion by forcing you into battles with these massive and horrifying creatures that feel impossible to overcome. It's that kind of physical hopelessness that these pieces create. And just like those games, the more extreme examples of this kind of Garfield horror carry a cosmic, nearly Lovecraftian feel, as Garfield is now so large, so impossible, that he begins to feel like some kind of terrible deity, a being of such immense power and scale that it throws into chaos our own sense of humanity's place in the universe, whether we really are the dominant species we've always assumed, or just dust in the wake of something much greater. I just read that line and I can't believe we're talking about fucking Garfield. The second type of Garfield horror is more intimate and psychological. Here, it's less that Garfield is a physical threat as much as it is the subtle, insidious damage he's doing to John's mental state, sometimes in the form of an awful, malicious creature who constantly follows John and goads him, driving him to do terrible things, but sometimes as a delusional presence in John's own mind, a manifestation of his internal struggles, be they depression, addiction, or worse, in a way that feels similar to your Shinings, your Silent Hills, or reading your own comment section. These pieces are much rarer, but what I think's awesome about them is how they take that bleakness that's always been a part of John's character and express it through Garfield. There is a third type of Garfield horror, and these are my personal favorite. Posts that focus on a more existential form of terror. The simplest examples of this are pieces that trap John in these impossible and infinite liminal spaces, where there is no escape and he will forever be haunted by Garfield. But other scenarios are more elaborate, like when even death itself can't release John from Garfield's grasp, showing Garfield as this immortal, unending being who will always return to plague John, or even the opposite, like in this one comic where John takes his own life to escape Garfield, only to be brought back to life by him so his suffering can continue. Other pieces are stranger and even more abstract, like showing Garfield as these grotesque physical parasites that have attached themselves to John and are feeding off him, while he is trapped in these strange, unending dream worlds. And I think where this particular kind of horror gets really powerful is when it's combined with the more psychological type of Garfield horror we just talked about, like Lumpy Touch's Relax John, which we mentioned earlier. And what I think is so great about this animation is it shows John returning home late one night at his most broken, his life now destroyed, having lost his job, Liz, and even Odie. And it's at this point, when he's at his absolute lowest, that he is most vulnerable to a being like Garfield, who offers John an escape from his miserable existence in the form of comfort, but in reality drags him into a frightening nightmare. And I love this so much because it is such a fantastic example of what Garfield has become on the internet. Garfield is despair. He's the part of John that makes him feel weak and insignificant, who pulls him down and traps him in realities dark and frightening. When I started this video, all John was this schlubby dude. But over time, that started to change. I watched him go from this character with a very defined purpose and reason for existing to someone who loses that purpose and becomes to the world around them a pathetic joke. And it's like that experience causes this deep emptiness to well up inside them, a despair that makes life feel meaningless and impossible in a way that the Garfield comic can barely contain. Till one day, that despair begins to manifest as Garfield, an entity that traps John in this deep and horrifying delusion, warping every part of his reality. This entity, with each passing day, growing stronger and more frightening as John falls deeper into despair. And when I think of this late stage of John's existence, there's one artist in particular that comes to mind. Part of what makes Rajam's work so powerful and frightening is how intimately they seem to understand each particular kind of Garfield horror. Some pieces show Garfield as these massive, monstrous beasts whose mere existence conveys this horrifying physical futility. Others show Garfield as this gargantuan and grotesque parasite, as this insidious force that's been with John since the moment he was born, and for years has manipulated and contorted every part of his life, draining John, until finally, Garfield has grown so powerful that he's now more a god than anything else, so infinite, cosmic, and terrifying that he's become John's entire reality, and John, now just a speck of dust, hopeless and terrified in the face of this thing that he created till the end of time. And I think there's something really powerful about these images. The beautiful thing about horror is it lets us externalize the things that haunt us. And when I look at the work of Omega Black or Lumpy Touch or Rajam, what I see is a person struggling. Someone whose existence stopped making sense a long time ago and who's just trapped in this horrifying distortion of what their life should be. And I think there's something very human about that. When I think back to the very worst periods of my life, what comes to me is this feeling of being trapped in my own mind, that there is something in me that is distorting how I see the world and the people around me and everything, and it's It's horrible. It's a nightmare. And I think the hardest part of it is the feeling that it's never going to end. That the way you feel in those moments is how you will feel for the rest of your life. And if you've ever struggled mentally or emotionally, you know that fear. And it is that fear that I've never seen visualized better than in fucking Garfield fan art. We all want to be Garfield, but we all are Jon Arbuckle. And the thing is, those bad times, they do never last. They do end. And I think that's why I find this final piece so hopeful. The piece is done in Rajam's traditional pen and ink style, but with a subtlety that makes it feel nearly carved from stone. And it shows a demonic Garfield lying, defeated and broken, a sandaled foot pinning him to the ground, which belongs to an angelic Jon Arbuckle. Tears rolling down his face, his wings raised in this just glorious arc. And it's like, after everything we've watched Jon go through, after all the loneliness, the depression, the complete loss of his identity, leading to the dissolution of his reality into this infinite, abject nightmare, after all that, somehow he's made it to this moment. He's taken his life back from the shit that haunts him, and it's fucking beautiful. And maybe this won't last. Maybe there's still darker times ahead. But it doesn't matter. Because in this moment, he's okay. What makes the forgiveness of Jon so powerful to me is that in isolation, it is an amazing piece of art and a real technical achievement. But when taken with everything else we've spoken about this video, it becomes the concluding chapter of a gigantic meta-narrative that is formed around Jon Arbuckle. And again, if I was the only person who saw that, there wouldn't be a story here. The forgiveness of Jon being the third most popular post on r/I'mSorryJon of all time, as well as adorning its front page. And I think it's awesome that so many people's individual works come together to pull such an incredible story out of something as simple as a daily comic strip about a cat who likes lasagna. This is what I love about fandoms. When you stare at them for long enough, these beautiful and strange stories start to emerge that are distorted and honest and amazing. And whatever else you want to say about the nightmare of the modern day internet and social media, I'm glad that those stories have a place to exist. I think that's pretty cool.
Mental health has found media representation with varying levels of accuracy since the earliest days of human storytelling. From the Greek theater to more recent works like A Beautiful Mind, Good Will Hunting, and the infamous and downright despicable 13 Reasons Why. However, amongst the largest problems with the vast majority of these forms of media is that there's a barrier between how the narrative is presented and how mental illness is experienced. A story is a story, a series of events that lie beyond our senses and something that often happens to other people. Even if the story is reciting a memory, the events of said memory transpired in the past. It's unusual for stories to happen to us immediately as they evolve in the now. This basic truth about storytelling, this allows access to a deeper understanding about and empathy for anxiety, depression, and trauma. And yet, this is exactly what the indie game studio Omocat has managed to achieve in their original RPG masterpiece, Omori. Omori follows a hikikomori boy named Sunny and his dream world avatar, Omori, exploring both the real world and Sunny's dreams in order to uncover the secret of his past and overcome his psychological trauma. The story of the game and the way it's presented in the narrative effectively allow for the barrier between other and self to be broken down, thereby allowing us to experience a diverse phenomena of mental illness and trauma as if they were happening to us. Welcome to White Space. You have been living here for as long as you can remember. The game's introduction to Sunny's dream world, White Space is an empty and cold void. One of the later characters in the game will tell you that to be in white space is to be nothing. It is emptiness, a home without warmth, a place to survive, but not to live. Just like Sunny's real-world status as a hikikomori, a Japanese word assigned to those who lock themselves at home away from the outside world for years, Sunny, as Omori, uses white space as a place to escape from anything potentially triggering or troubling in his subconscious. This is established after checking Omori's journal on his laptop, which will show you that Omori has spent an eternity here, every entry concluding, "Everything was okay." This journal also tells you that when Omori isn't busy locking himself away in white space, he's visiting his friends. There's Kel, the comedic and competitive good-natured knucklehead, Aubrey, the enthusiastic and empathetic tomboy, and Hiro, the big brother figure. There's also Mari, Sunny's sister, the mom friend and Hiro's girlfriend, and Basil, the shy but thoughtful gardener and photographer. It's these friends that Omori spends his time adventuring with throughout the course of the game, fighting and befriending cleverly conceived characters and enemies whose unique and oft-times surprising qualities and personalities lead you to easily fall in love with this world that most of the game takes place in, Headspace. But the real-world segments of the game are not so cheerful. Mari is dead. Sunny hasn't left his house in 4 years, and his friends, the same ones we met in Headspace, are broken versions of their former selves, still reeling from Mari's suicide. Not only that, but there's something that haunts you. It's only after Kel gets Sunny to leave his house, 3 days before Sunny moves away from faraway town, that things slowly begin to crawl towards the better. Underlying everything is a terrible secret, one that Sunny hides from even himself. And slowly, the influences of this atrocious and repressed truth begin to seep into Sunny's dreams too. The imprints of traumatic experiences are organized not as coherent logical narratives, but in fragmented sensory and emotional traces, images, sounds, and physical sensations. These images and sensations, as fragments of the full experience, are encountered in traumatic flashbacks, usually triggered by something vaguely related to the nature of that person's trauma. We see this in the game in the phobia fight scenes that take place across the 3 days before Sunny's move. At the start of the game, after crawling out of the colorful room in Headspace where you met Aubrey, Hiro, and Kel, you'll find yourself at a crossroads. Exploring the paths above and to the side of you will let you know that Omori is afraid of spiders, heights, and drowning. It's in the real world that we come face to face with the embodiment of these fears. It's this same something that becomes an important leitmotif throughout Omori, showing itself in instances where something relating to Sunny's trauma is implied. As Sunny suffers panic attacks over these fears, more and more clues about the events constituting his trauma are brought into the light, except they still say nothing. They affect Sunny negatively, but just like something itself, it isn't understood why. It isn't until we've seen the full truth that we are able to reminisce and postulate alongside Sunny what the significance of these images and sensations are. Operating under the guise of a third-person perspective, the narrative conceals the fact that it's actually operating in the second person. If Omori doesn't quite understand what something means yet, then neither do we, and that's how it's supposed to be. The game pays special attention to several techniques meant to make us react to these situations with the same feelings of dread and despair that Sunny is shown to experience. Things like the music, visual elements, and actual gameplay of particular scenes make us feel very much the same way Sunny does, but these triggering manifestations are not initially items of understanding as much as they are appendages to the dreadful experience. Once again, a dynamic that rings true to PTSD. The music and the visual matter of the game, alongside particular gameplay features, thematically combine and are employed time and time again to add suspense and immersion to the narrative. As Omori continues on, this is only done more and more aggressively. In the beginning sequences of the game in Headspace, you'll help Basil put back together his photo album, which got disorganized after a quarrel between Aubrey and Kel. But once you've finished, Basil will notice another photo on the ground. Picking it up causes a strange shadow to gather around him, and his fear-filled eyes turn red as he yells out Mari's name. But the next time you visit Headspace, Basil is nowhere to be found. The group elects to go off in search of him. However, while doing so, it becomes growingly apparent that the idea of this adventure was never really about Basil. Your friends start to forget what Basil looks like and what he likes to do, until he's entirely erased from their memories as you get caught in various other conquests. But no bandage can stifle an eternal wound, and there will be a time when his influence will bleed through. Just like the rest of the surmounting darkness in Sunny's subconscious, the shadowy apparition of Basil somehow always finds a way to insert itself at the conclusion of Sunny's oniric pleasure play and remind him of some piece of the harrowing reality he represses. Eventually, Omori and the gang's search for Basil leads them to the deeper well, the deepest aspect of Headspace. To descend any lower into Sunny's consciousness would be to enter the incoherent realm of his subconscious. You're standing on the very border between Headspace and the dark abyss of Sunny's repressed memories, thoughts, and instincts. This is the metaphorical representation of what it's like when in all your attempts at escapism, you actually get away. And for the player, it's an experience to marvel over. The anticipation, the dismay at what may be revealed next when you descend lower is hard to endure. When it comes to trauma, remembering the truth is agonizing, but the more horrifying thought here is what would happen if you actually let yourself get away from it. What would be left if all there was were your dreams? The end of this journey will lead to suffering, but if you do not face this, you cannot continue. This form, though it has not shown its true self, is evil. You will not see that unless you fight it. Basil's important connection to the truth cannot be understated. In the real world, Basil acts nervous around Sunny, and in his observed bathroom breakdowns, points out that there's something behind him. There's clearly something that ties Sunny's guilt and Basil together. No matter how many times you conceal the path, the flower boy will always find it. Which is why in Black Space, Omori killed Basil again and again and again and again. The meeting with oneself is at first the meeting with one's own shadow, Jung wrote. The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door, whose painful constriction no one is spared who goes down to the deep well. But one must learn to know oneself in order to know who one is. And indeed, who exactly is Sunny? Or perhaps a better question to ask is, who is Omori? The keeper of the castle says that your soul is split, that you can only choose one path. Stranger in Black Space says that Sunny's reliance on Omori is a curse. The act of Sunny using Omori as a Dreamworld avatar is one of the most provocative world-building devices used in the narrative, giving way to several questions which permeate throughout the entire game. What is Omori? And do his manifestations, role, and functions find representation in mental illness outside of the game? In The Lost Forest, Daddy Longlegs explains that Headspace was built over Black Space, meant to seal up its influences. For a long time, it is said that Sunny himself explored Headspace, but when the darkness of Black Space failed to abate, he chose to entirely forget himself as a means of protection, thus spawning Omori and using him to live his dreams out in attempted ignorance. And with Omori later getting skills such as Erase, alongside his tendency to brutally slaughter and mutilate Basil in Headspace, it is implied that Omori functions as the guardian of Sunny's thoughts. He is the one that carries Sunny back to white space every time we expose ourselves to a part of the truth. In a disturbing reveal, Omori then goes on to ascend a long staircase and sit atop a red throne. It is in this moment that the full split within Sunny finally takes place. The struggle between these parts of himself, a battle over Sunny's right to see the truth. It comes as no surprise, therefore, that once Sunny has entirely remembered the truth, Omori weaponizes it, becoming the game's final boss. The actual sequence of the truth relies entirely upon the idea of photographs and further contextual elements that add to their emotional weight. They aren't experienced in chronological order, and it's Sunny's role to sort these events into the order that they happened in. Due to the lack of exposition, this part of the game relies heavily upon the experience the player has. Although, through data mining we can find out what officially happened, I think Omocat made the right decision by electing not to include these portions in the game. A traumatic narrative that does not include the traumatic imagery and bodily sensations is incomplete. Mari had just begun to attend college and would come home too late to spend much time with Sunny. She would also devote major portions of her time to practicing the piano. Sunny missed spending time with Mari, and so all of his friends saved up to get him a violin. Using it as his excuse to spend time with Mari, he practiced with her for a recital that they would perform together. But Mari was demanding, and Sunny would get frustrated when he made mistakes. He hated the violin, as his lessons took him away from the time he'd rather spend with his friends. On the day of the recital, he and Mari had an argument atop the stairs, and he threw his violin down, shattering it. When she wouldn't let him walk away, he pushed her. Down the stairs she fell, snapping her neck on the way down, and dead when she landed. Basil, who had come over just moments before and saw it happen, took her outside with Sunny's help and tied a noose using a jump rope. Basil had decided to frame it as a suicide. But as they walked away, Sunny turned back and saw his dead sister swaying in the wind. You just shouldn't have looked. You just shouldn't have looked. I made the case earlier that Omori uses particular gameplay features in order to allow us to experience aspects of trauma ourselves. But if it's any less surprising, Omori also uses particular gameplay features to allow us to experience aspects of trauma recovery too. During the encounters with Sunny's trauma-related phobias, Sunny will learn different ways to cope with these various fears, calming down, focusing, and persisting. When it finally comes time for him to face the truth, he enters white space and smashes the black light bulb. This pits Sunny in direct combat with something, as it drags him quickly into the shadows. Slowly, he recalls all of the various techniques he previously learned through his past encounters with something. He calms down by taking a deep breath to regain some hearts. When something begins to take the shape of something different, he focuses to see it clearly. Something sways in the wind. You feel as if your life is in danger. Sunny remembers how to persist, preventing him from dying as something deals a lethal blow. Your lungs tighten up. Persist. Your heart beats out of your chest. Persist. Your fingers won't stop trembling. Persist. You steady and gather all of your courage and learn to overcome. The bond Sunny has with his friends is one of the major themes in Omori. In Headspace, your ultimate attack is unironically the power of friendship. It's shown time and time again that Sunny values them more than anything, but is afraid to confront them. After trauma, most all attachment becomes a threat, your very biology reconfigured to make it feel impossible to fully trust again. But his friends continually swear to stick by each other. And it's these promises and hopes that propel Sunny forward, trusting in his own abilities and the capacity his friends have for forgiveness. His friends' words and well wishes literally give him strength in the final fight against Omori. But when you lose your fight to Omori, the game asks you, the player, one simple question. Do you want to continue? Not as in, would you like to reload the last save and try again? But as in, does Sunny want to keep living? One last time, we the player must persist. and subsequently overcome. The resolution of Sunny's trauma finally comes when he uses his imagination, which for so long he had relied on for protection, to heal himself instead. Shows the reaction of Sunny's friends to the truth. To be honest, as much as we want his friends to forgive him, it doesn't matter if they do. Forgiveness does not relieve someone of responsibility for what they have done. Forgiveness does not erase accountability. Forgiveness is simply about understanding that every one of us is both inherently good and inherently flawed. Within every hopeless situation and every seemingly hopeless person lies the possibility of transformation. We are not responsible for what breaks us, but we can be responsible for what puts us back together again. Naming that hurt is how we begin to repair our broken parts. Forgiveness is why this ending doesn't show anyone's reactions. Telling the truth means accepting whether or not people will forgive you. As a player empathizing with everyone in the group, you are made to consider whether or not you would forgive Sunny yourself, and ultimately, if you would forgive yourself too. At first, we cannot see beyond the path that leads downward to dark and hateful things, Carl Jung once wrote, but no light or beauty will ever come from the man who cannot bear this sight. Light is always born of darkness, and the sun never yet stood still in heaven to satisfy man's longings or to still his fears. You owe it to yourself to give yourself your own clean slate.